Okay, now we come to the last point of today's lecture. It's about expatriation compensation. How to compensate expats. How should expats be compensated? I remember one of you or two of you worked even as an expat in a foreign country. Internship or apprenticeship, yeah? I don't know who it was now, but someone. I also worked as an expat myself in a different country, and maybe some of your parents, uncles, relatives, and so forth. I give you some numbers of what is a traditional compensation package of an expat. We talked about expatriation before, and I made reference to expat benefits. Yeah, and these are really lucrative, attractive benefits. And here we can look into different aspects. We have direct compensation costs. Here we take the example of an expat from Lower Saxony. You can think of maybe Continental or Volkswagen, large German companies. Maybe you 5 years later. So starting salary could be maybe 50,000 euros. A couple of years, 5, 6 years later, maybe 80,000. You would be a middle manager and you would earn 80,000 euro in Germany. If you then go to Tokyo, you will earn the same salary, 80,000 euro. But in addition, you receive all kinds of additional benefits. Could be a foreign service premium because you go abroad, and to make it more attractive to you, the company offers some additional payment. Such a bonus payment, you could say, 25,000 euro per year. Then maybe because Tokyo is more expensive than Wolfsburg or Hanover. Yeah, Hanover and Wolfsburg are rather low-cost countries or cities in Germany and also worldwide. Tokyo is more expensive. Maybe the expat would receive another allowance of 50,000 euro per year. And then housing in Japan is expensive. And if in 6, 7 years later you have a family, you have maybe one child or even 2 children. In Wolfsburg, you may have a house with garden, 4 bedrooms, and this and that. It may cost you 1,000 or 2,000 euro rent in Wolfsburg, but it would cost you rent maybe 8,000 euro per month in Tokyo, and the company will pay for it. So free housing paid by the company. And then typically, if you're being dispatched as an expat, you don't need to worry about taxation. So the company takes care of it. They give you tax allowance. You pay tax here and there. So to take out the pressure and the complications of taxation. And then you have a lot of additional costs. Now think about, you have 2 children, and they would attend international school in Japan because they can't attend Japanese school. As a German, you're very lucky. German school is very cheap. It may cost only 15,000 euro per year for one child, which is a bargain compared to American, Canadian or British schools, which charge maybe 30 to 50,000 euro per year educational fees. But anyway, even that would cost you maybe 30,000 euro. Company pays. Moving costs, relocation costs, company pays. Your spouse cannot work, company will just pay the salary or some allowance. And then you go home, company pays, and so forth. So what you can get here, a really nice salary, a very attractive package. 80,000 euro may be your salary in your home country, in your home place, but if you're being an expat under a traditional corporate expat compensation package, you may earn 3 times of that amount, direct or indirect payments. And many expats can save a lot of money. Because most of the things are being already paid for. So it's quite an attractive opportunity to go abroad, at least from a financial point of view. Cost of living varies greatly, and that's also one aspect here. Munich is the most expensive German city. In world standards, Munich is cheap. If you go to Zurich, New York, Singapore, London, and so forth, you pay maybe 30-40% more. Wolfsburg would be maybe between Barcelona and Warsaw, or Hanover likewise, relatively low cost of living. And that means also if you relocate from a low cost place to a high cost place, the company typically offers more incentives and premiums to attract you. the other way around, if you're being sent from Zurich, from Switzerland, to Bangalore, the company has to think twice. Why do we send this really expensive Swiss manager to Bangalore, which is so much cheaper? Why don't we hire five or 10, 20 Indians for the same money? And the Indian managers would think, why does the Swiss manager earn 5 times or 10 times what I earn, even though I'm one level higher than him, yeah, or her? Yeah, so that can already give you some ideas. Discrepancy. Because completely different costs of living, different pay levels across countries. And companies need to balance. How do we manage that? And how do they manage that? They have different approaches. One could be home-based balance sheet model. Yeah, and I will give you, that was the previous model from Lower Saxony to Tokyo. Yeah. And the other one could be headquarter-based model. So every expat receives the same salary as the employee in the headquarters. So if the headquarters is based in Zurich and you're being sent to Bangalore, not a bad deal. So then you have a very high purchasing power parity salary. And then we can think of a host country local market model. So that could be very attractive when you're moving from Bangalore to Zurich, because then you earn as much as the locals. But it would be a disaster the other way around. Suddenly you would lose 80% of pay and work as an expat. That's a big problem. And then we have a local plus model, so meaning you work as a local, but you get some benefits, some expat benefits, as we discussed before, or you have a better of home or host model. So whatever is better, you get it. So that tries to compensate for these problems. Or you have an international citizen model, global compensation, everywhere, same compensation for everyone. It could be also a lump sum model, meaning you get one sum of money. Here, 500,000 euro for the next 2 years. Use it as you like. Yeah, it sounds also appealing. It's not very common. Because, as I already jokingly say, some people cannot really manage that lump sum very well. And so they try to not to offer this. Or also negotiation. Very often smaller companies, you just discuss with your boss or your manager what you do. Okay. Now, let's discuss this expat compensation system on a very current case. Have you heard of Eva Kaili? It's one of the biggest scandals we've seen in recent history related to European Union. Also a very interesting case from an international HR perspective. She's from Greece and she's working in Brussels, Belgium, for the European Union. Now I'm not really going into the scandal. One question here I pose, not enough money, is her salary too little, so she needs to find different income sources? That's my question, very simple one. To give some more backgrounds, Brussels EU Parliament members has members from 27 countries and they're based in Brussels, Belgium. So you can see 27 countries, more from Germany, more from France, and very few maybe from Luxembourg and some smaller countries, but they're all represented in Brussels, Belgium. So they're all some kind of expats. And the situation back then, early days, 2004, was headquarter-based model. So meaning they received the same money as they receive in their national government at home. So that means an Italian EU Parliament member earns the same as a Parliament member of the Italian Parliament. And in Italy, that's fairly high. It's also very interesting because in Italy and Spain have relatively similar economic development, similar GDP per capita and everything, but Italians earn 11,000 euro. Spanish Parliament members earn 2,006 euros. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe it's a Berlusconi effect. But I'm not sure. But anyway, and Eastern Europeans, they earn 800 to 1,000 euro. And they all do the same job. They're all members of the EU Parliament. So, what's the problem with this compensation system? Probably the Eastern European member of Parliament, they earn less than the intern or the staff, no, maybe not intern, I'm not sure, but entry-level staff members. Also, as your other classmate said, It's really expensive. How can you survive with 800 euros in Brussels? And it's really harsh. So the news reported, Eastern Europeans, they slept in the office, save costs. No apartment, no housing, just sleep in the office. Office is provided by the EU for free. Has heating system, yeah, really useful now in winter. Yeah, it's unbelievable, right? And then the Italians, well, they're okay, not bad, yeah. So they can't survive. They have poor cost of living. And what the other classmates said, some of them earn so much less. They earn so much less than the lowest entry-level staff, even though they're supposed to be important member of parliament. So it's unfair. It's a problem of equity. And also a major problem, they can't survive. They can't maintain a decent life. And they're EU Parliament members. So if maybe this one Parliament member here, like the previous one, really has these money problems, maybe I can understand if she is happy about some extra income. But that's not what she receives nowadays. So any EU Parliament member receives a decent pay. And now they use the international citizen model. Everyone same national, regardless of nationality, blah and so forth, same pay. And it's not as much as Elon Musk or Ronaldo earn, but it's decent enough to survive. First, they get a pay of 9,000 euro per month, 9,000 something, and they have lower tax rate, preferential tax rate. Less. So I think they can keep maybe more than 7,000 something as net income, and they receive allowance of 4,700 euro in addition, which they can also use to supplement the income. And also interesting, they receive a daily allowance. So maybe you've seen that there was another scandal because they need to go and sign, and for their signature they get 338 euro. The intention is they should go and then sit in the parliament, but many just sign and go home, or they don't sign for themselves. They ask, please sign for me, and then one person signing different several times. That was discovered by a German news channel, which put a camera on where the people were signing, and they saw people sign multiple times, sign and go home. But anyway, that's extra income. And they receive a budget to hire people, 25,000 euro per month. That's also another scandal, at least from nowadays perspective. What do you think this budget was used for before? You can hire people. Who did they hire? You're smiling, yeah.
Probably like friends and family.
No friends, mostly family, yeah. Husband, wife, mother, grandmother, daughter, sister, cousin, and so forth. Nowadays, I think 2017 or so, you cannot hire family anymore. So that has been stipulated. Unfortunately, or at least there have been some compliance, no more families allowed to be hired under this budget. But overall, it's still a decent pay, and they switched from a headquarter-based model to international citizen model, and also offering all kinds of allowances so that expatriates or these EU parliaments earn a decent pay, can survive and do their business. Here, a figure of understanding the home-based balance sheet model, which is the most commonly used compensation model for expats. So we have home country salary. Remember, if that expat is based in Wolfsburg, he or she would earn this much of money, and the idea is this money will be taken, deducted for income tax. This portion will be used for paying for housing. This will be used for all kinds of goods and services, eating, blah, and so forth, clothing. And then you have a little bit of discretionary money that you can save. And the idea is now, if you relocate abroad, so in Japan, housing would be more expensive. This would be more expensive. So the idea would be then, you would compensate for the difference. So the company would pay extra here for goods and service differential, extra for housing, or take care of the whole housing aspect, and maybe even pay premium and incentives. So the idea would be that the expats can maintain their lifestyle when being abroad, maybe add premium incentives. That's the original idea of this home-based balance sheet model, which is frequently used in American and European companies. The numbers I presented you before, this is really a traditional, a very generous package. Nowadays, companies, of course, they try to save cost. Also in terms of housing, they don't give you 100,000 euro for housing anymore. Some still do, many don't. They try to negotiate and try to reduce costs, but they still need to offer enough so that expats accept an international assignment offer. Here are these different models, and in comparison, headquarter-based model. It's very easy, has advantage. It can be very effective in attracting expats from countries that are lower salary, lower cost of living countries, such as the case Indian expat working for a new American company. That can be attractive. But it would be very difficult to attract people from in the other direction, or as the case also has shown in the EU Parliament, that doesn't work too well in some cases. Then we have host country local market. Again, it's very simple because you simply localize the contract, everything as locals. It's again very simple, but again this can lead to perceived unfairness, and again it depends where from, where to. And if you have an expat from a low-cost country, developing country, to a highly developed, high cost of living, high salary country, it will be extremely difficult to send that person back. They don't want to return. Why should they enjoy then the benefits in that more developed country? So what we see very often nowadays is also local plus model. So we have the balance sheet model, which is very common, and also have the local plus model. So that means companies offer local salaries and they offer some additional benefits. And that also they use it very often for self-initiated expatriates that are high in demand. So meaning you offer a local salary, maybe a bonus, and also depends on the location. So in Singapore, it's very common that as an expat, even if a self-initiated expatriate, you would receive housing allowance because housing is expensive and they pay for that. And in Korea or China, it is also very common, you receive an education allowance so that your children can attend international school, which is really expensive. And so that's also being offered. So that's a model that's also fairly common and increasingly common nowadays, local plus model. We have a better of home or host model. Again, it's very simple. Employees choose, and then obviously they opt for the higher option. And that may be possible in some more homogeneous nations and where the discrepancy is not that high. We talked about the international citizen model. Again, that's also flexible for European Parliament members. It makes a lot of sense. And so it can be used, particularly if you have relatively also homogeneous markets or you really strive for some kind of fairness. Then the lump sum model is a very unusual model nowadays, rarely being used. Maybe for short-term assignments, maximum 1 year or 2 years, it maybe could be used for simplicity. Smaller companies, sometimes they don't have the opportunities to calculate a balance sheet model or this and that, so they simply negotiate on an individual case basis with the involved expat. So then we also have to consider not only the expat but also the host country national, because they may work together alongside one another. And here we would consider then again global integration versus local responsiveness. And the main objective is here to create some fairness or reduce inequity. Because we talked about before the case that the expat earns so much more than the local, even though they do the same job. That's a problem. Then maybe also in such situations, the locals are very unwilling to support or assist the expat who earns so much more, because also in high power distance countries, they know everything, so why should I help? No help, nothing, and that can be a serious problem. So that's also from a short-term perspective, we don't care about this, but from a long-term perspective, it's very important to consider these issues. So what can multinational corporations do to trying to reduce that conflict and perceived unfairness? One, this is kind of cheesy, make agreements with the expat to hide compensation. Yeah, so that also sometimes means, in terms also of a compensation, very often also for tax reasons, they're not paid in the foreign country, they're also being paid at home. Yeah? And so they receive a certain amount of compensation in the host country, and they receive a certain amount of compensation in local currency, in their own home country currency, transferred to also to their home base, the bank accounts, maybe also in terms of housing, trying also to select more modest locations and so forth. Yeah, but make it not too obvious with the cash payments and also non-benefits. What would make much more sense, yeah, is open communication. Yeah, and then also trying to explain the reasons, because very often expats are there for a reason, because they transfer knowledge, they teach local staff, or they're for coordination purpose and so forth. And that also needs to be become obvious also to the locals, that they understand, yeah, they have these important functions. A local cannot do so easily, because many jobs that expats do, they're not so easily visible, yeah, to the locals, because expats typically they communicate. There's a lot of communication between headquarters and subsidiaries.